Hi, my name's Maria, and I want to tell you about a man, a father, a grandfather, a husband, a son, a brother, a friend, a colleague, a leader, but most importantly, a role model. This is a documentary about my dad, Bob Scherer.
Bob Scherer died this afternoon following a lengthy illness. He was 57 years old.
A big part of him was the great support by his family, especially his wife Lisa, who never gave up in a 2.5-year battle against overwhelming odds. A great believer in the power of prayer, was an inspiration to the rest of us.
He was a huge personality here that got so much done, not only for his industry that he loved, but for the city that he loved as well. And I can tell you this much, not only from a personal standpoint, but our community's going to miss Bob Scherer.
Once in a while, someone comes along, that one in a million heart, so pure and so strong, they can face up to the tears and somehow still find a smile. We only get it every once in a while. Once in a while, someone has the eyes, that one in a million look that never tells lies. They can get you on your feet to walk that extra mile. We only see them every once in a while. That's why we call them heroes. That's why we know their names. And once you've heard their stories, you're never quite the same. That's why we call them heroes. And the best thing they ever do is point to the best in us all and say, if I can, you can too. Once in a while, I still hear his voice, that one in a million sound, like two laughing boys. He would hate it if we cried. That never was his style. Oh, we still miss him every once in a while.
Jim Wayne, and I'm son-in-law. I married Bob's little sister. And I'll just say 3 brief vignettes. About 15 years ago, Lisa and Deb and Bob and I were riding to Spindletop, which is outside of Lexington, to a reception for clinical social workers. And because I'm a clinical social worker. And they said, well, we'll all go down and we'll have a good time in Lexington. Well, we got lost. And, and when we finally arrived there, I wasn't sure how my guests would interact with all my colleagues. So Bob started introducing himself to all of my colleagues as Dr. Jones, a neurosurgeon. And he was introducing himself to all the people in the reception this way. And Lisa and Deb and I did not change the opinions about that. Everyone actually thought he was a neurosurgeon. The second vignette was when I had a fundraiser, because I'm also a state representative, and we had a political fundraiser, and Bob, being from the station, has to be politically neutral. So it was a fundraiser that was quite expensive. It was $500 a person, so we didn't have a whole lot of people there. But the people who were there were the wealthy people in the community who were strong Democrats. So in order not to take sides, Bob, when he signed in and put his name tag on, he put a name tag on that he was Rush Limbaugh. So he marched into this fundraiser with all these Democrats with this label of Rush Limbaugh, and Bob got away with it. The third vignette is several years ago, my wife and I saved our pennies and went on a special anniversary cruise to the Greek Islands, and Bob and Lisa came along with us, which was a true pleasure. And Bob relaxed on the trip and was really laid back, his usual self, whenever he's on a boat or a ship. And we had a task that when we would travel to each one of these little Greek islands, that we each were assigned a Greek island to study it, and then we would carry the rest of us and introduce the island to the other members, to Deb and Lisa and Bob, if it was my turn. So I was to study it, and then when we got to the island, I could say, well, this is what this is, and this is what this is, and I carried the tour book with me to explain everything. So I was kind of the lead person, and each of us had our turn. When it came to Bob's island, we got on the island, and it was a deserted island. There were no people on this island. The earthquake had destroyed all the buildings. They were just in rubble, just rubble. So we got on the island, and we left the cruise ship and stepped onto the island, and we looked at Bob and said, well, Bob, it's your turn. And we all noticed Bob didn't bring his tour guide book. So we said, Bob, how are you a tourist? You don't have a tour guide book. You obviously didn't study this. You've been sleeping on the ship the whole time. So he marched us through this rubble, all these ruins, and each step of the way he would say, now this is a tree that was planted in the place where Cleopatra had her swimming pool. And this over here was the area of the marketplace. And this over here was where the special priest of the island lived, and so on and so forth. And we just thought he was full of it, because we knew he didn't have a tour book. He was just making all this up. So we got back on the ship, and we opened up the tour guide book, and we all read about the island we just visited. It was all exactly like Bob was describing. He had studied this secretly, and he had learned about it, and when he got on the island, he knew what he was talking about. So, as we all know, Bob's full of surprises, whether he's Rush Limbaugh or he's a tour guide director on an island or he's a neurosurgeon.
One of the more practical jokes out of Bob was one day he called me into his office and gave me this, it was it's the kind of cup that you have to go and urinate in for a drug test. I don't know how else to put it. And he said the company has a new drug policy, and you have to go, and you have to go into the restroom, and you have to return this to my desk. And I was furious. Now, first of all, I've never done anything like that, but to actually think that I would have to take a drug test, it just really upset me. So I went back to my office. I took this file with me, and I was doing, and somebody came in and said, I think it was Mark Thomas, the president general manager, and he said, don't you know it's a joke? He's just joking. And I thought he was serious. So I went down to the little WHAS commissary and got some apple juice, poured it in the thing, walked into his office, put it down, and I said, here's your blankety blank sample. And I picked it up and I just... And you know what? He didn't do a damn thing. Nothing could make this guy react.
But I have to tell this story. You're talking about being unflappable. This is just so like Bob. We went to the UK game. We left about 11 o'clock. We're so tired, exhausted. Joe and I in the back seat. And Bob, gosh, usually it takes an hour and a half to get home. We're like into 2 hours. Bob eventually says, I think we're lost. And Joe said, well, where do you think we are? I'm not sure. And I said, well, don't you think we ought to turn around? Yeah. And I was so tired. And I'm saying to Joe, I'm so tired. We've gone at least 18 miles up the road. And he's saying, yeah, we're lost. So we keep going. I'm getting a little aggravated. And then I said, what? We've been in this car 3 hours. We're over an hour from the route. Sorry, home. You're okay. And he said, yeah, we've got to turn around. And then he spots a Waffle House. And he says, let's go to Waffle House. And I was so aggravated. And but that's just how he was. So we went to Waffle House and we had breakfast. And Joe said, give me my break. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's the longest trip between Louisville and Universal. You said Bob has left us at 5 o'clock, and he's happy. I don't think he got there till about 5:15.
Something funny. I'll never forget the Christmas that we decided, it was several of us got together. We were going to do something fun. We were going to do a video, a roast of sorts, and we caught Bob on tape snoring very loudly, and so there are several of us that we last minute put together this this production of Bob snoring. It was the snoring video.
Keep me up all night snoring?
Well, I didn't know you could hear me in your room.
I can hear you with my door shut.
Oh, Maria, it's not true.
Yeah, I can. Your old door shut, my door shut, and I can hear you snoring.
Well, turn the music on.
Oh, is there music in Lisha's room?
Snoring is a good sign.
What is that?
It's a sign you're still alive.
Oh. Who was it? Who was it?
What? Tom, I don't want interviews right now.
I've got to get an interview with that guy. We're here at 7238 Heatherly Square, and there has been much complaint about a disturbance, a common disturbance that's been coming from this house. And I've been calling and trying to get an interview with Bob Scherer and find out exactly what's been going on, but I have been denied an interview continually. And now it's time to find out what has been going on. Come with me. Ma'am, my name is Glenn Allers. I'm from the Courier-Journal and WHAS 11. And I'm here to find out what is going on in this neighborhood. We've had a lot of complaints about a common disturbance here. Could you tell me exactly what's been going on here?
My mom told me this would happen sooner or later.
Could we come in, please?
What's going on?
Could we come in and find out exactly what's been going on here? This noise that's been going on in the neighborhood, the neighbors are complaining.
It's Dad. Yeah, sure. Come on. I'll show you where his bedroom is.
Come on in. Live. WHAS 11. We've got him now. We're here at the door. This sounds dangerous here. I'm a little scared to go in. What is this go on every single night?
Yeah, every night.
Oh my goodness gracious. There are others here. Could you come on over here too? What is going on here?
I am so humiliated. This is embarrassing. I just don't know what to do, but now that I'm on TV, I'm with the gentlewoman in Color Plus, and my makeup matches my robe.
I'm so embarrassed. Hi, Sam.
Well, I'm certainly glad this thing has finally come to an end. I'm not sure yet whether this is just a man as no. My friend told me that she prayed daily for a good son-in-law, and now it's turned out like this. Just beats me.
Told you so.
Gotcha!
I remember growing up, we had an intercom system in the house, and Dad would always make sure the radio was blaring in all of our rooms to wake us up, even when we were going through our teenage years and not getting in until 4 in the morning. He was 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and had that WHS blaring in our rooms. I went through a period of time where I didn't come home till very late at night, and Dad did not like me sleeping in, so he would do all kinds of things to get me awake, and that was one of the irritating things that he would do. Get up in the morning and put on his little silly hats, those little floppy doggy hats, and turn on the radio and wake everybody up with his radio, flipping pancakes, always making pancakes, putting sunflower seeds and wheat germ, and it was never just the pancake mix, and he made the best pancakes. That was his job. It was not beyond him on school days if I didn't get up in time to add water to my bed or ice water or do something. It wasn't always pleasant. Dad was always liked things in order. And so if you came home and put your school books on the banister and he didn't like it, he'd go put your school books out in the garage, and then you're running out the door the next morning trying to figure out where they were. Ever since we were growing up, he always had a boat. Long time he had it with Papa, but ever since we can remember, and he always said that he did that to keep family together, because he could have bought a little cottage or something someplace farther, and we wouldn't be able to use it all the time. And so we grew up on weekends in the summer and spring getting together as a family. He always was concerned about family and other people, and he's greatly missed, and he'll never be replaced.
Bob actually babysat for me one time. I think he was working for Coca-Cola at the time, delivering Cokes. And for some reason, he was the one that was babysitting for us. I don't know what I did wrong, but I do remember Bob holding me upside down in the toilet and flushing it on me. So a swirly from Bob, yeah, you don't really expect that. But one of the fondest memories I have is when I first got married, Bob was the one that really helped us out. He is the one that gave us his car, a little red Carvera, took me out and taught me how to drive the Carvera, almost taught me how to drive because I'd never driven a stick before. He says it's real easy, and we were probably about 8 blocks away from the house when he said, "Here, just try it. So I did, and I put it into first gear, and I didn't do very well. The car broke down right then and there, and we had to walk back. And he was kind enough to at least go fix it for me, and he taught me again later on.
I'm Debbie. I'm Bob's sister, his only sister, and I'm sure I was a pain in his side when I was born, because he was the firstborn, and he was perfect, as other people might have told you that he was called Peter Perfect. So when I came along, I had a lot of competition there, but so I used to tear up some of his toys and do things like that for him. And he used to babysit for me, and Mother would go downtown, or uptown, I believe you called it then, and she'd come home and she'd see blood pass all around, and she knew that I somehow had gotten hurt, and Bob had cleaned it all up and helped me out with it. And he was a good babysitter, and we had a good time together. And as we got a little older and we were in grade school, he was in a lot of sports. I remember him being, I think I was like in the first grade when he was in the 8th grade. And all of the girls always liked to be friendly to me so they could get to know Bob, see. So they would be nice to me, but it was really an ulterior motive so they could get a date with Bob or whatever.
Every now and then some of the real cute girls from Loretta would come by and pick me up.
What's Loretta, another school?
That was a high school. All girls high school.
Is my stuff down here? You were a stud, huh?
No, never said I was a stud.
Oh.
They thought I was, but they didn't say I was.
So I can remember him being very handsome and athletic, and I'm sure he was the envy of many a guy, and all the girls liked him, and I think that carried on into high school. One of my favorite memories of being in grade school was going to his high school games. He played for Flagey, and that was like the highlight of our week, to go to the Flagey game. But he had probably one of the best sense of humors of anybody I've ever met. Just very dry, but a great sense of humor.
It's a piece of fabric.
Messy.
Dad.
You just threw away your gift.
What's that?
Oh.
Wait, these, I don't know what these are for. What are these for?
No, that's
What's
your
this
new
for?
suit.
That's my new suit?
Yeah.
It don't fit.
Think she'll like Cheerios.
Don't butt me. Don't butt me. I didn't do anything.
She just wants you to pet her.
No, I'll pet you.
So that's her butt pet. Scratch. So when she does that,
Thanks. Give me the old butt treatment, huh?
no, she wants
That's what I think about you, too.
She wants you to scratch.
I'll moon you. You can't moon me.
He was funny. He told jokes a lot.
And what was your favorite memory?
Well, serious.
Ride your shoulders. Turn around. So you got your shoulders right. Hold still. Okay, you ready?
I'm Praise Dollars. I'm Christina Scherer. And we're Papa's grandchildren. Granddaughters, yeah.
Hello, I'm Shepherd Dollars, and I'm the oldest grandson of Bob Scherer.
touch it? You want to touch that one?
No.
What boys do?
No.
Beautiful.
Hi, you give me a kiss? You'll give me a hug? Not showing my muscles yet. Half those muscles.
Bappa was a great-grandfather, and I don't mean like a great-grandfather because he was a grandfather, but he was a great-grandfather. And I miss him really very much. And I can't wait when we can all be up in heaven with him. And I hope that everyone in the family will get to see him. And Bappa was a man of great character, and he would watch me play baseball, and he taught me how to play golf. So Bappa, wherever you are up there, I love you and I miss you.
I always remember Bob as being gentle and smiling and always positive and had something nice to say and always joking.
I met Bob in 1962 when my family moved next door to his family. He was that big, good-looking guy next door, but then he got married. And then I started dating his younger brother many years later.
When I was in the Army,
When we were in the Army, and when John was in the Army.
we paid $8 a week to live in a motel. It was a dump. We didn't have any money to eat on or anything. My pay was $8 a month, and she got $60 a month. And then they're down in Texas living with me, and so we'd send Bob out, and he'd go underneath all these motels and collect the old bottles, soft drink bottles, and we got 3 cents a piece for them, didn't we?
I think so. That's the way we would buy our food.
Well, I remember when we headed out to Florida. I was the one that was in good health. Bob said, you're brave going off with us handicapped people. And yet he did most of the driving.
He certainly did.
And Papa drove with him. I drove very little. And then I remember the day that he and Papa went and got their fishing license. And they were going to go
big fishing.
Big fishing, yep. Then they couldn't decide where to fish. Then they went out on the beach. And what'd you do, Papa?
Well, we fished. We had to carry our gear out to the beach. Bob wouldn't let me carry it. He carried it. And I felt so bad that he was weak, but he carried it out and put our chairs out. You'd think we was going to stay about a week.
Yeah.
And we worked our heads off trying to catch a fish. And I ended up catching one big enough, wouldn't made a sandwich. And we put it back in.
But you'd have thought it was a big dolphin. We were so proud of him.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
did you win a $1 bill from him, or?
I won $1 from Bob. He paid me the $1.
Yeah, sure did.
Nanny and I stood up on the deck and waved to him.
Waved at him and
told him supper was ready.
It was an awful hard job for me just to walk back from that beach. And I don't know how he ever did it.
He did it.
But he sure made it.
He was determined. He was taking his dad fishing.
He said he was going to go fishing with his daddy, and he did.
That was one great trip.
Every time we get in the car and take off in the morning, he would be singing, "On the road again."
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Going places that I've never been. Seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on
I'm Joanne Scherer, and I was Bob's first wife. We were married in 1963, right when we both graduated from college, and we were married for 24 years. We maintained a good relationship throughout our divorce and up to the time that he died. Bob's got this little shiny new red car, and he tells me it's some fancy name of a sports car. Well, it went over my head. I wasn't into cars, so I had no idea what he was talking about. I found out later it was a Carvere, which is, I guess, an American-made car, but he wanted me to think it was some fancy sports car. He was a good father, and he loved Maria and Alicia, and they were the joy of his life, and he was real proud of them, and he took lots of pictures all the time, and you know, it worked out, you know, really well. That we, and probably in hindsight, it was good that we had the children right away, because we could enjoy them, you know, longer when you're older. Just unfortunate that Bob couldn't live a longer life, because that was say unfortunate. So when you look at that, it was really good that we did get started younger.
I really began falling in love with Bob as soon as I started talking to him. The first time that he called me, we talked on the phone for about 2 hours, and then the first date that we had, we went to dinner, and then we went to the houseboat, and we sat on the houseboat until the middle of the night and just talked. And the next day was Father's Day, and that was my first Father's Day without my dad. And Bob was spending Father's Day with his dad and his family down on the boat. And the very next day, I went to my store to work, and that afternoon, I received a dozen red roses from Bob, and it didn't even have his name on it. It just said, "To a special lady." And the other thing that he did on our first date that really impressed me, besides sending me roses after the first date, was I'd been having back trouble, and he was so sweet. He massaged my feet, and I was so thankful it was dark, because I have such funny feet, and I thought, oh, if he sees my feet, he'll never take me out again. Remember the time Bob had me take Grandma Sarah out on the wave runner?
Oh, I remember that.
I never
We were running along beside the Belle of Louisville.
He always called me Mooch. Anytime I had to go in, he expected me to be hungry. And I usually was. But we always had a good time together.
My favorite memory of Bob, probably the funniest thing that I remember about him, is I was at Bob and Lisa's one night for dinner, and all the women in the family were there, and Bob was the only man. And someone was asked to give the blessing, and they did. And then at the end of the blessing, he says, "And God bless me, because I'm going to need it with all these women."
Bob was the type of man that you could talk to. You didn't know exactly how much he empathized with you. He was kind of a stoic person that didn't have a lot of emotions in his face, but he listened, and he was kind, and he would do anything for you. And you knew that you could go to him because he wasn't going to judge you, and that was the important part, that he wasn't going to be critical of anything you had to say, so you could say anything to him.
I was his accountant for all the years until his death, and I was his brother-in-law from all the years from when he got married, and I was his substitute best man, because the best man from Texas couldn't make it, you know. And when my sister Joanne divorced him, I continued to call him my brother-in-law, and people would constantly, and probably I was baiting them by calling him my brother-in-law, correcting me, saying, "You mean your ex-brother-in-law?" I said, "No, I didn't divorce him. Joanne did. He's still my brother-in-law," and I meant that.
One of the things I remember about Bob was Lisa just bought actually some new furniture, bedroom furniture, and I was over there kind of hanging out, talking with him, and opened up, or the armoire was open where he was putting all his sweaters and shirts neatly stacked. Looked like a haberdashery. And then look over to the closet, he must have had 1,000,000 hats. And I thought, he always had different hats on, but what does somebody do with that many hats? He probably had hats from every golf scramble he'd ever been in. every rodeo he's never been to, and who knows what else. So another funny thing was actually I have a picture of the two of us together. It was probably one of the funniest times, and that was somebody was getting ready to take a picture of us on the boat, and so he turned around and kissed me on the forehead and just acted like nothing ever happened. Of course, that's how he was with his hats too. He could wear a hat and act like it wasn't even there, so he was pretty funny, pretty dry.
Just wanted to talk about Bob and WHAS. He's the only guy that I know that as soon as he got out of college went to work for WHAS, and he never switched employers. That's quite amazing in itself, but he loved WHAS, and he spent his whole entire life with the radio station, and he started as a salesperson and moved his way up to sales manager and then general manager, and then vice president of Clear Channel Communications. But that was his entire life. He loved it. It allowed him to be associated with the community. He spent a lot of time through his association with WHAS. He was supported Kentucky Derby Festival and countless things, Crusade for Children and other things. WHAS was his family. They were his friends, his family, an extension of his family, and he truly enjoyed his job, which there's not very many of us can say that. Anyway, he was a unique individual just in the fact that he had a family outside of his family with WHAS.
My name is James R. Bob Frazier, or J.R. Bob Frazier. However, Bob Scherer always called me Bobby. I've been with the company, been blessed and honored to be here for going on 23 years. So Robert and I, which I always called him Robert, go way, way back. I have great memories about Bob Scherer, and three things in particular, is that I always admired his ability, no matter what would go on, no matter what was happening, whether it was a humorous situation or a very, what you might call one that has a lot of anxiety in it, he always kept the same style of face. It was kind of like he showed no cards at all. So he reminded me of just a stone-faced guy, no emotion at all, but had a very, very big heart.
My memories of Bob Scherer, there's a couple of perspectives here that I can give you. As a Louisvillian, honestly, I really appreciated what he did in the community. I noticed there were a lot of events that I was a part of that weren't necessarily radio events, but Bob was there because he was really into grassroots, being in the community and giving back. That was sincere. It had nothing to do with business. Now, on the business side of it, as a radio personality, I didn't get to work with Bob except for the last year of his life. So during that time, I didn't really get to see him a lot or talk to him or really benefit from working for him. But what I do know as a competitor, because I was across the street, he was always admired. Everyone always wanted to work at Clear Channel. This was the place to be. This was the heaven of Louisville radio, and that was because of the leadership of Bob Scherer.
Best thing about Bob was he was my personal shock absorber. When I came on WHAS, it was pretty staid, and they wanted me to sort of shake it up a little bit and carry on a little bit on the air, and he was the general manager. He was the boss. So oftentimes I would say something on the air that would irritate people. Imagine that. And he would get the call because an angry listener would call and say, "I want to talk to Terry Miner's boss. Put him on the phone." And Bob would always take the call. Sometimes I'd even be in his office. He'd take a complaint call. I couldn't really hear what was being said, but you know when someone is shouting in a telephone, you can just hear a voice just sort of piercing out of the earpiece. And Bob would say, And whoever it was would be complaining about me. And when they'd get finished ranting and raving, Bob would just say, I agree with you. There's nothing we can do about it. Thanks for calling. And he'd put the phone down and I'd say, was that about me, Bob? And he said, yeah, but don't worry about it. He never dumped all that garbage on me. He just took the arrows for me and went back on to just being his sweet self. Bob Scherer. That's the guy I'll always remember.
I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the awards that Bob won over the years, because there are quite a few. He was extremely well thought of in the community and in the radio community, and so let me start by some of the community awards. The Business and Professional Women of River City gave Bob the Good Guy Award, and that's because he really fit the name. He donated an awful lot of the resources of our company to making sure that organization did well, and donated an awful lot of time and his personal time and energy to making sure that women in the workplace were served properly, which is really something that I think he deserves a lot of credit for. The Peabody Award, perhaps occasionally you'll be watching television and you'll see that one of the national talk shows or news magazines has won a Peabody Award. That's the highest award in our industry. And Bob has been the general manager of these radio stations and shepherded a number of those. I think we've won 4 Peabody Awards, and that's unheard of for a radio station. We've won several Edward R. Murrow Awards. He was one of the founding fathers of our broadcasting business, and it's certainly one of the highest awards in our business. The Marconi Awards, we won several of these over the years, and same thing. Marconi certainly influential in developing our industry. There were a number of really distinguished awards in our industry that Bob won while he was a general manager here, and he certainly deserved every one of them, and probably more that I haven't mentioned or that he didn't receive. We wanted to be sure that we would never forget Bob Scherer, and we were trying to decide how to remember him, and there's certainly more that's going to happen in the future. But one of the things that we thought of was, what is the room in this building that is used more than any other room? And the answer is the kitchen. People are into that kitchen every single day, and everybody goes in and out of it. And so we named the kitchen after Bob, and we call it Scherer. And so we decided to do that because we wanted some place that people would never forget and would always think about Bob when they walked in and walked out. Those are a few things about Bob that I think everybody needs to remember, because he did an awful lot of special things, both as a professional and just as a good friend.
Bob and I, in the last 15, 20 years, have spent a lot of time at U of L games. We used to go to the Final Four appearances. We traveled to New Orleans and different things to watch basketball. We've traveled to Tulsa to watch football with the University of Louisville. He used to take me on some of those trips that the athletic department would call him up and ask him if he wanted to go on. I always knew he was a big fan because we attended all these games together, but didn't realize what a fan he was until I talked to the U of L staff. And the U of L staff told me that Bob was instrumental in getting U of L sports off the ground. His connection with WHAS radio and all the hard work in the community that he did for U of L really put U of L on a path. And obviously, they recognized him at one of the football games for being such a great fan and a big supporter of the University of Louisville.
In the early 1980s, Mr. Scherer had the vision to place University of Louisville athletics at the forefront of WHAS radio sports programming. Please direct your attention to the north end zone and show your appreciation to Lisa Scherer, wife of the late Bob Scherer, and his parents, Mr. and Mrs. John and Tess Scherer. Thank you for your support of Cardinal Athletics, and a special thank you to Bob Scherer, who we know is with us here today in spirit. In a ceremony preceding today's game, U of L dedicated the 5th floor media lounge in Mr. Scherer's honor.
I remember walking into Bob's office and seeing a picture of Bob on the side of the stadium. He and other community leaders were invited to participate in the groundbreaking ceremonies for Papa John's Cardinal Stadium. Now, fast forward to last year's opening game. Bob had been very sick, in fact, nearly passed away. But he had engineered the purchase of the WHAS radio suite downstairs, and he very much wanted to be here for the opening, and he made it. Bob loved U of L football and basketball. And knowing that he was responsible in a small way for helping bring this structure to what it is, responsible for our suite, and now having the press box dedicated in his honor, would please Bob tremendously.
We had many wonderful trips with U of L. We went all the way to Japan, and we loved every minute of it. Bob loved sports. He loved U of L. And I have to share a little family secret with you. The day after Bob died, I believe with all my heart that his spirit came back to me in a cardinal bird. And I see him all the time. And because of that and because of his love for U of L, I really know that this is a very happy day for Bob as he looks down on us. And in behalf of our family, we just want to thank you for honoring our loved one. Thank you.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I've got it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth. Of course I know you. I would be nothing without you. Did you ever know that you're my hero?
Yeah, we have a director, chairman of the board of the Kentucky Derby Festival, and this year it's Bob Scherer, and riding in the River City carriage there. That's the way you go in style here in Louisville there.
And he deserves to take a seat for a while. He's been a busy, busy man since Thunder over Louisville.
Oh, yeah, at which many events of this festival. Bob's the vice president general manager of WHAS WAMC Radio. He's been involved with the Derby Festival for many years. And again, more than 80 events. And for folks watching from out of town, it all started with Thunder over Louisville, the biggest fireworks display in the world this year. We had 34,000 shells in less than 30 minutes, and almost 700,000 people watched it.
Anyway, showing their support for Bob and his nearly 20 members of the family is the Has-Been Trolley.
Thunder night of this year, Bob was rushed to the hospital.
Actually, the nurses left so that our family could come in because they had given up on him.
As the man who had been nicknamed Mr. Radio clung to life, friends and family prayed.
In about 3 days' time, he died literally 4 times, and it just wasn't his time. God still had a plan for his life.
Well, I had a little soft lump on the back of my neck.
And that's how it started for 57-year-old Bob Scherer. Born and raised in Louisville, Bob had devoted his life to radio in Kentuckiana. Starting at 84 WHAS in 1963, he's now in charge of 8 Clear Channel radio stations. 2 years ago, Bob was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
His involved the bone marrow as well as lymph nodes. So it was a widespread disease involving many organs of his body.
You didn't hear, Bob passed away today after a long battle with cancer, and he certainly fought hard, but lost his battle this afternoon.
I'm Milton Metz, a friend and co-worker of Bob for many years. I don't know what his reaction would be to all the reminiscing today. My hunch is that Bob would have managed a little smile and said something to the effect, "Come on, all this for me?" He wasn't an aw shucks kind of guy. He was not flamboyant either, despite his great success. I know in his modest way he would have appreciated these tributes, but over the years, those of us who have many images that come to mind. There was a time he traveled to the West Coast when WHAS received the industry's highest honor, the prestigious Marconi Award. Although he'd come 2,000 miles for the event, and it was on his watch that the award had been earned, when it came time to accept the coveted trophy, Bob Scherer suddenly stepped back, giving Skip Essick, then program director, the pleasure of going to the stage to accept the honor. That's the kind of man he was. Bob wasn't outwardly demonstrative, so you can imagine his reaction to the scene I'm about to describe. At the time, George Emery, who was in the audience, was an account executive for WAMZ. Bob was newly appointed general manager, and he walked into the corral where they stable the salesman. He walked into his office, was near his cue to find George in high spirits. "Wow, George!" He hollered out to him, "I had a great month. I made budget and then some." And while Bob was digesting this news, Demery, a monument of a man maybe 6'5", who would never weighed 250 pounds since he was a child, wrapped his arms around Scherer, lifted him a foot off the ground, and planted a kiss on his forehead. Bob couldn't believe that it went on, but he got himself together and walked out. A week went by before he showed up at George's desk again. Quietly begged, "George, please don't kiss me in public." A lot of humorous guys have been exchanged about Bob's so-called, what we call financial conservatism, especially by an afternoon DJ who shall remain nameless. Of course, Bob Scherer was the most generous of men, as his family and his friends know. Nevertheless, there is a story about Wyndham. Don't know whether it's possible, but it sounds true. It's about the time when Bob was an account executive, and along with Bill Bryant, who I think may be here this morning, then a salesman for WAMZ, took a mutual client to lunch. The rumors that the lunch took an hour longer than necessary as each salesman hung back trying to outweigh the other in picking up the check. The story is that Bob the next day brought a jar of Vaseline into Bryant with a grin and this advice here: "Spread a little of this on your wallet, it will slide out easier." The absolute truth is that Bob Scherer, Vice President and General Manager, was a good boss in a very special way. You might come into his office upset, complaining that things weren't going right on your show. "Look, Bob, something has got to be done, or I don't know what will happen. Bob would look at you with a calm, concerned expression, bland, not saying a word. And you went on talking, getting more and more upset. Then after a minute or two, you found yourself winding down until you finally heard yourself saying, well, I could try this. I could try that. Bob would look at you. Maybe he would mutter something, maybe he wouldn't. Anyway, after a moment or two, you'd take a breath and you'd say, yeah, good idea, Bob. Thanks. And then as you close the door, someone would ask, well, how did it go? And you'd answer, Bob took care of it. He let each of us find our way. He let us develop and hone our talents. And he never panicked. Bob had a certain quiet confidence in all of us. And that's just one of the 100 reasons we'll miss him. Bob Scherer, a good and decent man.
I know that a year ago, we were all struggling with Bob's illness and all of us wringing our hands worried about him. He was in dire straits, and somehow, some way, he came through that, and he forced himself to go another year. And I know I'm looking at this from a business standpoint, but I mean it in an emotional way too. I think that he willed himself to live one more year because he knew the tumult in our business of all this merger and all these stations that used to be competitors being put together and how much pandemonium that could cause. And he wanted to be here to shepherd us through all that transition. He was so proud when we finally put this building together, put everybody together, and he'd walk in there, somewhat slow, but just stand up proud like a Marine coming home from the war. He'd come in there and you just knew he was so proud that he'd seen this project all the way through. And I think he was finally able to let it go and move on to a realm where we all hope to be cradled someday. Bob, I love you. Thank you.
Those of us who worked for Bob, he always made us feel it wasn't for, it was with. So Bob, for all of us, family, friends, co-workers, and business associates, let me borrow these words. Sometimes we need reminders in our lives of how much people care. We will carry forward this reminder forever. We love you, Bob, beyond words that can even begin to say how much. We will hold you and the happiness you spread within our hearts each and every day. We are so thankful for the years that you gave us. If we were given another chance to do it all over again, there's not a thing we would change. And there is no one we would rather have had as our example. We'll miss you, Uncle.
Many of you don't know it, but for those of us who married into the Scherer family, a secret vote on our fitness for entry must be held before the wedding takes place. For Lisa, JJ, Debbie, Glenn, Tyler, Sean, and for myself, the tallies were always close. We were each admitted, in fact, by a margin of just one vote. Despite the secrecy of the counts, each of us in-laws knows that Bob's vote was the single winning vote. Thanks, Bob. And now to you, the friends of our family, we say thank you. The last 2.5 years, our family has grown closer than ever before. Your prayers for Bob's recovery
gathered round your grave to grieve. Wish I could see angels' faces when they hear your sweet voice sing. So go rest high on that mountain, son, your work on earth is done. Go to heaven shouting, love for the Father and the Son.
Fear not, nor grieve what may seem like my loss, you whom I have loved so much. For my roots and yours are forever entwined.
I can look out my window, my kitchen window, or I can go in my backyard and I can see where he's buried, especially in the wintertime. You can see right up to this beautiful hill and this beautiful tree. And it's very nice to know he's back there and watching over all of us.
Each one of you have touched me in some way, in some part of my life, at some time. I'd like to say that I think my life has been good.
Love for the Father and
My dance lessons have been taught to me throughout his life, although I hear them more clearly through his death.
Our oldest daughter, Maria, created this documentary in order to keep the memory of her father alive and also to have something to pass down to future generations so they would know part of their roots. But the truth of Bob's immortality is not in this heartwarming documentary, but in our children, in Maria and Alicia, and their children, Shepherd, Praise, Christina, Joshua, little Robert, who looked so much like his grandfather, and new baby Hope, and all future descendants. His genes are theirs forever. They will always have a part of him. And with this gift comes a great responsibility to live up to a life well lived, one lived with integrity, success, truth, gentleness. An awesome combination that made up Bob. We miss him. May his soul rest in peace.
lead us to a place, guide us with your grace.